The movie begins 50 years in the past, when the Earth was attacked by an alien force known as the Formics. The sacrifice of the human commander, Mazer Rakem, saved them, but now the humans are preparing for the Formics to come back. To protect the planet, the International Fleet recruits the world's smartest and most gifted kids and trains them to become military commanders. Ender Wiggin is one of them. He is a genius kid, and Colonel Graff thinks that he is the one they need to defeat the Formics. He is called to the infirmary, where his monitor is taken out of his neck. He leaves the infirmary and is attacked by some other recruits, but he defends himself and warns them to stay away from him. Ender goes home and tells his sister all about the fight, and says that he is now just like his brother, Peter. Peter arrives and taunts him for being a dropout, saying their parents just wasted money on him. Later at dinner, his dad comforts him by saying that it is a difficult program, and he should not be ashamed of anything. In the meantime, Colonel Graff, along with Major Anderson, arrives at their house. They tell him that removing the monitor was the final step in evaluation, and he passed, so they are offering him a place in their program. He tells Ender that he'll be graduated to battle school, and he agrees to go with them. He is then sent to the battle school. There, Sergeant James Dapp tells him and the others to work as a team and make this place their home. They are told that they will all compete as a team against other teams at school. With the passage of time, they are trained for hours in strategy, tactics, and combat. One day, Colonel Graff tells them that he has the opportunity to promote some of them, so they all need to work hard. He then tells them that their communication has been held back, because he doesn't want them to be distracted. Ender questions it, but Dapp punishes him and says that he'll never be a commander, and he'll never salute him. Next day, Ender stands up for his fellow, Ally, in front of a bully, and the others become his friends. Later at night, he plays a mind game on his tablet as a mouse, and Graff and Anderson observe him. She says that they need to see how he deals with frustration before he can become a leader. In the game, he has to choose between 2 drinks, and one of them is poisoned. But whatever he chooses, he ends up dying. Ally watches him play and asks him what he is going to choose, but this time he chooses violence and attacks his opponent in the game. Anderson is shocked, because no one has ever done this before, but Graff comments that he is perfect. At this exact time, Ender gets a message that he has been promoted and assigned to the Salamander Army, and that he needs to report immediately. He follows the Green Line and meets the other members of Salamander Army in a bunker. Bonzo Madrid, the commander of the army, is not happy with his arrival, and says that he'll get him replaced as soon as possible, because he is an untrained person. Bonzo then warns him to stay out of the battle, and not to get in anyone's way. Later, another member, Petra, tells him that Bonzo doesn't like to lose, but she'll teach him some moves on the battlefield. After their practice, Bonzo gets angry at Ender for practicing with Petra, but they make a deal that he'll let him practice, so Ender can be traded later. Next day on the battlefield, while competing with the leopards, Petra hits her head, and even though Ender was told to stay back, he goes after her. Since the salamanders are losing, he then pretends to be hit, but hits the leopards from behind. At meal, the leopard commander mocks Bonzo for keeping Ender back. He doesn't like this, and later beats Ender for making him look like a fool. At night, Ender plays the mind game and sees a Formic transform into his sister. The mouse then turns into Ender, and it destroys a snake to protect his sister. But his sister turns into his brother, and he taunts him for becoming a murderer. Graff gets angry at Anderson because of Ender's brother ending up in the game. She tells him that this game reflects the child's emotional reality, and that she has no idea how the images of his family got into the game. Graff orders her to delete the game. The next day, Graff summons Ender and compliments him on his excellent performance. He then asks how he would feel about leading his own army, the Dragon Army, and misfits like him will be in this army. People who would be brilliant in the leadership of a new commander. Ender is taken to the commander's quarters by Sergeant Dapp, and he salutes Ender. He then meets his soldiers and tells them that he doesn't intend to be like other commanders. Everyone will respect each other, and they'll become the best in the school. The dragons start training, and soon get in the top 3 positions among the other armies. Soon, dragons get to the battlefield for a battle with the top 2 teams of the school, the salamanders and the leopards. One of them gets injured and is replaced with Petra. Instead of going directly into the battlefield, Ender orders them to go in as a formation, because they have never done this before, and the enemy will not expect it. And they win the battle almost immediately. Bonzo didn't like the defeat and comes to fight with Ender in the shower, but ends up hitting his own head. Ender is disturbed by all this and blames himself for Bonzo's injury. Ender asks Graff if Bonzo will live and asks to be sent back to Earth, or else he'll resign. They go back to Earth, and Graff arranges Ender's meeting with his sister, Valentine. She tells him that the If wants her to talk him back into the battle school. He retaliates, but she tells him that if he doesn't try, then everything will be lost. He goes back, but this time not to the battlefield, but to the advanced command base, closer to the Formix planet, for training. Turns out, the command base is the place where the Formix used to live once, but were cleaned out of the tunnels. Dapp takes him to his quarters. He sleeps, and wakes up to a man in his quarters. Turns out the man is Mazer Rakim. He never really lost his life. He then shows the videos of what actually happened to Ender. In reality, Mazer took out the Formic Queen, and the others just gave up, but this information is kept confidential. Ender meets Bean, Petra, Dink, Eli, and Bernard, and they start training together, under Rackham's direction. He tells them that the rate at which the Formic army is expanding is the most alarming thing. Ender questions why the Formics haven't attacked them, and Rackham replies that the Formics are planning to colonize another planet, but they have been ordered to destroy the Formics before they make a move. Rackham tells them that their training starts with photorealistic simulations, giving them an exact feeling of battle. Rackham tells Ender that his entire fleet must protect their most valuable asset, the MD-500, at all costs. Ender writes to Valentine, expressing his feelings that he was always afraid of failing. But he will not lose this war. He will do anything and everything to win this war. He also states that with the passage of time, the training is getting intense. Ender, being the leader, orders others, who are the troop commanders, and they manage their fleet of drones. Sometimes the mission they are given is a success, and some days are harder than the rest. After failing a mission, Rackham tells Ender that they can't afford such losses in the actual war. Ender is exasperated, and says that his team is sleep-deprived, and they can't function without sleep. But Rackham cuts him off and says that it's part of their training, and a failure like this can't happen again. Even though he's irritated, Ender agrees with the colonel. Rackham tells him to be really sure, because others were also trained, and they all were failures. Ender is hurt by his words, and asks Graf whether he is not the first one to be trained, and it turns out he is not. He is told that the next day it is going to be his final simulation, and if he wins, he will face the real enemy, and will be the finest commander ever trained. Later at night, Ender talks to Petra. He is a bit worried about the war, because it is different from a game. He asks her if the Formics could talk to them. She tells him that they don't have vocal cords, and he suggests that maybe they could think to one another, and maybe they could communicate with the Formics through thoughts. But Petra stops him, and says that they need to sleep for the simulation tomorrow. He is still worried that they'll lose, but she says that they have him, and they won't get crushed. Later, Rackham asks Graf if he really thinks that Ender is the one for the war. Graf is a bit anxious, but he still replies that they are committed, and Ender has all the abilities to think like a Formic, and he can understand them better. Next day, Dap wakes Ender up for the graduating simulation. He goes for the simulation, and finds out that the Strategos, the military commanders of the international fleet, are also there to witness the final simulation. Rackham tells him that if he succeeds, he'll get promoted to the battle commander of the entire fleet. Even though he's a bit agitated, Ender stays calm, and orders his troop commanders to stay calm as well. The simulation begins, and they see the Formics waiting for them, not advancing. Eli asks Ender for orders, but he doesn't respond. Bean tells him that the enemy's gates are down, and Ender's eyes get focused. He orders Petra to engage the MD-500. Rackham doesn't approve of this decision, but Graf says that they should let Ender follow his instinct. Petra shoots and they destroy the Formics, but on engaging False Color, they come to know that they are not done yet. He then orders every fighter to protect Petra. Rackham doesn't like this, but Graf says that Ender is the commander. The Formics attack their fleet and destroy their transportation fleet, but he orders them to protect Petra at all costs. Petra asks about her aim, and with sheer determination in his eyes, Ender tells her that if they destroy the planet they'll destroy the queens, and the game will be over. He tells Petra that they'll clear the vision for her, but she'll only get 1 second to fire her MD-500. Right when the Formics break through their shield, Petra fires at the planet, the chain reaction destroying every bit of it. The simulation ends, and they all shout and clap with ecstasy. Graf and Rackham come to them, and it turns out that the final simulation wasn't the game, but the actual war. Ender looks at his army with disbelief, with his eyes welling up. He says to Graf that Rackham said it was a game, but he tells Ender that he has destroyed the Formics. It is all over. Ender leaves the room, with betrayal and hurt on his face. Graf goes after him, but he shouts at him to stay away. Graf says that they were afraid, that he would not have played if they had told him. Ender shouts that he murdered an entire species. If only he would have known that all of this was real, he would have waited and not attacked them first. With his voice heavy with tears, he says that he would bear the shame of this genocide forever. Graf shouts back that all that matters is that they won, but Ender says that the way they won mattered. A sergeant comes and injects him with anesthesia, and Dap carries an unconscious Ender to his quarters and lay him on his bed. His team members arrive and ask Colonel Graf if Petra can stay with him, and he agrees. Later, Ender has a nightmare about his sister in the mind game, and wakes up disoriented. He runs and gets out of the command base, and says that the Formics accessed the mind game, and they were trying to communicate through him. He tells Petra to go away, and himself goes inside the tunnels made by the Formics. He thinks that he destroyed the future of the Formics, and now he must make amends. There, he finds a Formic queen. She touches his face, and he cries, feeling her sorrow. He comments that she is about to expire, and the Formic shows him an egg with a baby Formic inside. With tear-filled eyes, he looks into her eyes and promises that he'll find them a new home. The movie ends with Ender's letter to Valentine, telling her that he is now an admiral and traveling the universe because he has a promise to keep.